Welcome to the Website Success Show, the podcast dedicated to helping women in business make the most of the content they're already creating so they can get more traffic and sales through their website with less reliance on social media and paid ads. I'm Jules White, the founder of the Website Success Hub, and I love helping course creators, podcasters, and business owners make more money through their existing website. If you have a business you love but you don't love the way your website performs, then this is the show for you.
Good morning. Happy Friday. Today, I want to talk about how I use AI every single day in my life, in my business, in everything that I'm doing. I would really love to just talk through some of the ways I use it and some of the ways that it helps me. But for today, I'm going to do it more like my personal life and how I use it to specifically help me outside of my business and outside of what I'm doing for work. I use several AI tools. I was just creating a list because I'm going to do an episode about how I use it in business as well. So I was creating a list of all the different tools that I use that have AI in them and the ways that I use them. That was really interesting because there's so many, and I'm sure I've only just scratched the surface of all the different tools that I use that have AI built in. And this is more and more is developing around that. We're going to have more things where it's integrated into everything that we do. I think if you haven't tried AI, then you're really missing out on some things that can help make our lives easier. I keep encouraging my husband to try it and just use it in different ways because you can use it directly on your phone. It's so easy to use. So let me talk about a few ways that I use it. First of all, the main tools that I use outside of business, the ones that I use every single day are ChatGPT. I do have the paid version. I use it in my phone. I use it on my desktop. I use the app in my phone to talk to it, which I think that's probably the reason I use ChatGPT more than anything else. It already feels like my own personal assistant. I think it's getting better and better. And I think all of these tools are getting so much better. The fact that I can talk to it and it talks back to me like a real person, sort of, or not even sort of, mostly, it's probably a better way to describe it. I absolutely love that. I think it's brilliant. I use it sometimes when I'm out on the dog walk, just having a little chat with my assistant. I've given mine the name Charlie. I don't know why I ended up coming up with Charlie, but it's like, hi, Charlie, how's it going? People see me walking around talking into my phone, then they probably think I'm a bit crazy, but I don't mind that. It helps me. And that's why I tend to use that really. With ChatGPT, one of the big things that it's had for quite a while is being able to update the memory so that it understands things about you. That's a double-edged sword with that, really, because the memory gets full and then it's remembered a load of stuff about you that it doesn't necessarily need to. Whereas Google Gemini, I've just introduced that this week and are actually approaching it slightly differently. But it remembers things, so it can understand things across the different chats that I've had on ChatGPT. It can add things to its memory about me and about us and our lives, how we like to live, the things we struggle with, the things that we enjoy, our strengths, our weaknesses, those kind of things. And that can help in terms of having those conversations and being able to use it to make your life easier. So that's sort of ChatGPT. That's the main one I use. Then Google Gemini. I use Google Gemini daily as well. I use it a lot more probably in my business, but that will evolve over time. They've now added into Google Gemini that you can update the memory, but you can choose when you tell it to update. And I don't know how the balance is on that because obviously then you have to say, remember that. And I don't know whether that's going to be better than it just recording things that it thinks are important. I'm sure they will come up with a way to make that process easier. But just the fact that it can record and remember things about you is helping it get better and better. When the chat version of Google Gemini came out, I found I didn't particularly enjoy it. The first time they put it out, there was no option to change the voices, or I think they were all maybe only male voices. And that was immediately me. I was like, no, I don't want that. But they have made that better now. But I've just found that it's not quite as clever and intuitive as ChatGPT's voice chat. But I'm going to try it again because so much has got better with Google Gemini. Even things like the images, they've just had major developments in that, and they are updating the systems all the time. I've been reading a book this week about SEO in the age of Google Gemini. And it's just made me have a lot more respect for what they've actually doing behind it and I think Google Gemini will be one of the biggest developments. I didn't realize how much of Google's technology was involved in all the AI being developed. So I think that is definitely something to watch. If you haven't tried Google Gemini, or if you tried it early on and didn't get on with it, then I would definitely suggest just maybe trying it again and see if you find it's any better, see if you enjoy it any better than you were. So yeah, give it a try and see how you get on. Sometimes I find that ChatGPT seems to be having a bad day, and often I'll find that Google Gemini gives me good answers, and so I switch between the two because of that as well. And it does depend what I'm doing. Like if I'm creating the follow-up content from a podcast, emails and things like that, then I tend to put it into both ChatGPT and Google Gemini, because I find sometimes I get good answers from one and sometimes from the other. I would say definitely try the different ones and see how you get on. I find at the moment I'm good with ChatGPT, Google Gemini, and all of the other little bits that I use within the apps that I use in different places. So the other one that I use a lot is NotebookLM. And this is one that I feel like I've just scratched the surface with. Actually, I talk about it in episode 13. So if you want to find out more about NotebookLM, go back and listen to that episode. That was just kind of a brief intro of when I first discovered it. I think it's been a lot bigger in the US than it has in the UK. It feels fairly new here, but actually a lot more people are using it in the US. That one, it just allows you to put information into it so it can be more specific on where it's drawing the information from. You're less likely to get what we call hallucinations. So when ChatGPT or Google Gemini hallucinate and just comes up with something completely random, completely off topic, completely wrong, you're less likely to get that with NotebookLM because you are feeding in specific places to reference. That's been really helpful for a business bundle that I've been in, but I'm actually going to talk about that more when I do an episode around using AI in my business. Then I will talk about that then. So yeah, that's another one. Use that regularly, not quite as much as the other two. I'm there where I'm literally using them multiple times a day, and I don't tend to use NotebookLM so much for my personal life, although there is one aspect of that where I have been using NotebookLM, which is a book that I've been trying to read. Is a book called The Silver Method, and it's all about activating your higher consciousness. I've struggled to read this book and I've struggled to do the steps. So basically it's a form of meditation. It's all about activating I can't remember whether it's the right side of your brain or the left side of your brain. It's all about activating your alpha mode. So that mode your brain goes into in that moment before you fall asleep, it's about activating that. And I've just struggled with it. I've struggled with actually implementing the steps in the book. So I actually I can't remember what the name is, but there's a website that you can go to and you can download a PDF version of a lot of books that are out there. So the majority of books that are available, you can download a PDF version of them there. What I did, I found the book on there and I popped it into NotebookLM and just asked it to summarize it and to make it more relevant to my learning style. The fact that I struggle with creating images in my head. Like if somebody says, picture a watermelon, that's one of the first things you have to do is picture a watermelon. And actually my brain works differently to that. So I struggle to then actually create an actual picture in my brain. I can mentally describe a watermelon, but actually having that picture is something that my brain just doesn't work that way. So I popped this book into NotebookLM and it essentially came up with a plan for how I could implement the steps in the book for my own brain. It was brilliant. It was great. It's so good. I feel like I've just scratched the surface with NotebookLM, but it's something to keep an eye on moving forward. And as I say, there's lots of other AI tools that I use, and I will talk about those more when I talk about how I use it for my business. But the main ones that I use in my personal life are ChatGPT, Google Gemini, and a little bit of NotebookLM. So this week I was at Cranfield University, it's just down the road from me, and they had a empowering women in business event going on there. So it was workshops, networking, lunch. This week is Global Entrepreneurship Week, and it was all to do with that. And it was really good. I really enjoyed just connecting with some other amazing local women in business, really interesting conversations, lovely to talk to people and find out what's going on in the local area as well. The reason I wanted to go was to build my network, find out more about what's happening locally in entrepreneurship and how I can make the most of the amazing things available nearby and connect with that local network. So there was a workshop at the end and it was all about reconnecting with your self and just rediscovering your sort of core self. And they gave us a task to do, which was to create a motto for yourself. They had a slide on the screen, and it was like a coat of arms. So with the 4 quadrants, and to create a picture of a coat of arms. So she had some questions that you had to ask yourself and kind of write some notes on. And that was then to create your motto. But this is one of the things that my brain also struggles with, is thinking about stuff on the spot. I really struggle with that. So if you ask me to name my favorite food or my favorite color or my favorite movie, is actually one that I probably could do, which is The Bourne Identity. But it's one of the things that actually ChatGPT has been really helpful for. The questions that she asked were, what makes you happy? What are you good at? 3 things from your background that you most value and cherish. And then the personal motto in pictures or words. And those would be the 4 things on this coat of arms. So I went into my ChatGPT and I typed in, based on what you know about me, create a personal motto with the following sections. And then I put in those questions. And it came up with some really good stuff. And I think they gave us about 15 minutes to think about this. There's no way 15 minutes later I would have had what I'd had in that ChatGPT chat. And I actually popped my hand up afterwards and said, oh, I'd struggle with stuff like this. This is what I did. She said, just be careful because it's feeding back what you want to hear. That's why sitting and just writing is better. But different people's brains work differently. I think one of the things for me is sitting with a blank page just doesn't work. My mind checks out. I could sit here forever and still not think of something. If I was having a conversation with somebody and we were just chatting about that, my brain would open a bit more and the thoughts would flow a bit more. Maybe even if I was in the car or if I was out for a walk and just thinking about it, that might help. But still, if it's a blank page, that's what I really struggle with. So having that reply from ChatGPT and just having something that just got me started on it made it a lot easier. And it made me think about the memories that ChatGPT has of me. I was actually having a chat with the person I was sat next to afterwards, and we were talking about what it had generated about me and if it felt true and everything. And then we were talking for quite a while about what bits were relevant. She was talking about what she'd got on hers. And actually that then prompted me to think, oh, well, yeah, that might be appropriate for me. And I remembered that I'd done quite a few personality tests years ago, and maybe a couple of years ago, where I'd done like Myers-Briggs test and Enneagram and all those kind of things. So I thought, well, if I feed that into ChatGPT as well, it can understand more about me. It can summarize some things about me and help me to then build that out more. So I did that when I got home. I popped those things in. So all of the personality tests I've got, those kind of things, just put that in there. And then asked it, okay, so based on these new things that you know about me, create a personal motto. And it did make a few tweaks, but most of it was still the same. So most of those conversations I've had with ChatGPT that has allowed it to understand more about me has obviously helped it to already have a good idea of what I'm like, my strengths and weaknesses, and the things that I believe in. So that was one thing that was just, I found it really helpful, trying to think your way around things. If there's something that you're struggling with and where you just think my mind just goes blank, just how can you just then pop that prompt into ChatGPT and get started on some ideas? So that's the first way that I use it. So the second one is meal planning. This is one that I use every single week. I tend to use ChatGPT for this, and I have it loaded in with our preferences, the things that we like and we don't like, the things that we're trying to achieve with our diet and healthy living, lower fat meals, things that are quick and easy to prepare, things that are tasty, things that like inspire me to want to prepare it, want to eat it, thinking about what's in the fridge. So if you're ever stuck for what to cook for dinner and you've got the ChatGPT app, you can literally go in, take a picture of what's in your fridge, and it does it really well. I take a picture of the vegetable drawer, and as long as you can kind of see the labels of things or see what things are, it does a really good job of creating something that you could create for dinner. So literally you can go in, take a picture of your fridge. It already knows that that's probably what you're trying to do. So if I forget to actually prompt it with what can I create for dinner, just literally take a picture of it, then it will then come back and say, looks like you're trying to create a meal, or looks like it's a picture of your fridge or something. And it's so clever. I can't wait for the point. I know there are some fridges that have cameras built in. And I think you can get those fridge cams that are built in. And if you're in the supermarket and you've forgotten what's in the fridge, you can log in. But I can see how this is going to evolve. This is already helping me, just having these meal plans. One of the things I'd always wanted to do from very early on when my husband and I lived together was I wanted to have a list of 8 weeks of meals, so I never have to think about meal planning. It's literally on a rotation. And I finally got that done during COVID, actually, when I was furloughed in COVID. I got my meal plan done. So I ended up with 8 weeks of food, and we've got a big folder with all the recipes in on that 8-week plan. And that worked for us probably for about a year or 18 months. And I got to a point where every week we weren't ending up eating a lot of what was planned for the week. So I was swapping meals out and skipping. So I had it all in ClickUp back when I used to use ClickUp. And I was finding I was often swapping the meals. So what this has done is just allowed me to have that little bit of structure around what we plan each week. So I don't have to start thinking fully from scratch. See what's in the freezer already as well. Quite often what I will do is I say, it's another week on, because I have it all on one chat. And I say, it's another week on, I need to plan next week's meals. That way it knows that it's not the same week and I'm just tweaking what it had given me from the week before. And I will say, this is what we've got in the pantry, the freezer and the fridge. Help me start creating a plan for this week. Quite often it will forget some of the things that we don't like. So my husband's not keen on stir fries. And there's other things as well on the list that we don't particularly like. And sometimes it will add those in. So I have to then say, remember what we like and don't like. Oh yes, sorry, Aaron doesn't like stir fries. So that's really helpful. I think it is like an assistant. And one of the things I would love to do when I'm a very successful entrepreneur is to have a private chef. So this feels like this is a little bit of help with that, really, in terms of actually just planning the meals for the week, getting that out of my brain and out of my head, and just taking a little bit of that mental and cognitive load away. And it will then create a shopping list for me based on what is on the meal plan for the week. I've always wanted an app that would do everything from start to finish. Over the last few years, I've looked at different apps in terms of inventories for your pantry. I'm such a geek, honestly. All of those kind of things where actually I would love it if there was something that told me what things were going to be going off. It kept an eye on the pantry. So it knew the meals that I'm cooking this week, you will have used 3 stock cubes. So that means you've got 2 left in the pantry or whatever. I would love to have something like that literally goes from planning the meals to knowing what's in the cupboard, to knowing when I'm using things, to knowing when we last had that particular meal. All of those things built in together, and then it just being there on a tablet on the fridge, then it just would seem so smart. It always seems a little bit out of reach. The apps that I've used in the past have never quite done the job properly, but I feel like AI could be the thing that actually helps that to become a reality, of all of these things coming together, being able to do the menu planning, the pantry inventory, the nutritional goals, those kind of things all together. So that's how I use it for meal planning. And then one of the big ones that I use it, again, probably daily, is for some mindset coaching. And I've actually been having some mindset coaching. I've been working with my friend Jane. She's been doing some mindset coaching with me, and it's been amazing, truly transformative in my life, just so helpful, working through some of those mindset blocks. And talking to a real human will never be replaced by AI, just purely because it does work on predicting what you want to hear, and it never really has that human creative thought. So I think that's where AI will never replace those human conversations. But it has been really helpful just for working through things myself and having chats about why I feel certain ways, or the things that do hang me up and the things that I struggle with sometimes. And even just working through things like ideas and potential things that I want to try and do and try and achieve. And that's been really helpful. So quite often, if I am out on a dog walk, I might use it even for planning my day. So sometimes it will be talking about mindset stuff. Sometimes it will just be talking about, these are the things I need to do today. Help me to organize it. Is it realistic that I'm going to get all of these things done? Which usually it isn't, as I think we all do, normally put way more on my to-do list than is it realistically achievable in a day. That's definitely something that I've found has been helpful. And it reminds me of things that I've maybe struggled with in the past. it reminds me of the ways that I've said I'm going to help myself. So things like putting my own boundaries in place, putting my self-care in place, those kind of things that I think about, I have a conversation about them, and then I kind of forget about them. And it actually just having that there to remind me of, remember, you need to take breaks regularly, Jules. Remember, you need to not be working all the time. Remember, you need to exercise. Remember, you need to look at your testimonials folder and just remind yourself of the work that you're doing and why it matters and why people are enjoying working with you. Those kind of things, just when you have that bit of a dip, are really helpful. I also have found it's been helpful for me thinking about the skills that I have and how that relates to different things that I do in my business. I was thinking about if I ever had to create a CV and how I'm like, even the thought of sitting down to write a CV, it's like, well, how would I do that? So I started having a conversation with ChatGPT about some of the skills that I had in my employed job when I was back in the salon, all the things that I was doing there and how it relates to what I'm doing now. Those kind of skills that are transferable, I'd kind of just take them for granted, not even realizing that they are strengths and they are not a given for everybody, really. I think we all can tend to undervalue our own skills and our own strengths, really. And it helps with that. Also, if I am having a day where I'm feeling a bit like, why am I doing this? Is it helpful? Is it actually making a difference? Is anybody listening? Those kind of things. I can just ask it to big me up and just remind me why I'm doing it. Remind me why I am the person that clients would want to work with. And as silly as it might sound, it sometimes just helps. Just that little reminder. And quite often it will say, I know these things are hard sometimes, but here's a reminder of why you're doing this and why it matters and why you're great. Just for like my little cheerleading team, personal cheerleading team, for when my brain has checked out from that point. So that's something that actually loading my personality tests into there as well, I think will really help. I think that's other things in there that I can then draw upon. And just, I guess all of this is about learning more about yourself, where your hang-ups come from and how you can work through them and how you can basically sort of set yourself up for success, really, as well. Another way that I use it is I often feel like I don't know what to say, and not so much in person. I think when I have conversations with people, I'm fine. That's something that I didn't used to think that about myself. I didn't used to think that I was good at building relationships and talking to people. When I was back in the salon, quite often the other therapists would be having much more of a conversation with their clients. But what I realized was that I'm quite comfortable with silence. So clients who wanted to talk and the conversation was naturally flowing, that was fine. That actually not everybody does want to literally have a non-stop conversation. And it's okay. That I felt like I have to kind of be entertaining. And actually, I realized that that's not true. Some people do just like to be comfortable with silence. And sometimes conversations flow really easily and sometimes it doesn't. So I think that's one of the things is actually I've always had that feeling of not being very good at that kind of stuff. And I do feel like when I have to write things, I can write things down or write an email or something and just feel like it just doesn't sound very good. So I use ChatGPT, and often Google Gemini is better at this, actually. So typing out what I want to say, putting it into Google Gemini or ChatGPT and just say, make this sound a bit better. And it always does a really good job. It always creates something that still tends to sound like me. And that is getting better and better, that it doesn't sound like AI so much. And it was just tweaks to it. It's not even like it's rewriting what I'm saying or that I'm using it to write something. It's just making little tweaks to make it sound slightly more concise and slightly more how I want to sound, I think, really. It's all helping me to learn. So the more that I'm doing that and the more I'm getting these easier ways to communicate with people, the more I'm actually learning about better ways to communicate, really. So that has been something that I use a lot. And it's just helping to make my life a bit easier, really. Just helping me feel less geeky, less awkward a little bit. Not that I like my geekiness, that is part of me, but I want to learn. I want to improve how I can do these things, really. And then using ChatGPT for fun. I was in another Facebook group and I saw the prompt which somebody had put in there about, based on what you know about me, draw a picture of what you think my current life looks like. And if you've been using ChatGPT for a while, I would 100% recommend doing that. If you're not in the Facebook group already, please, this is your invitation to come and join us. It's a private, free Facebook group for people who are clients, former clients, people in my network. And if you're here listening to the podcast and you're not in the Facebook group, then come on over and join us. And look for the thread. There's some really good ones in there. My one was mainly about cold swimming. And it was funny. Read the comments, look at the other ones that are in there as well. And please do share yours. They all seem to come up with something wacky, strange, and quite funny as well, really. But that kind of stuff, just actually having a bit of fun with it. I've seen people who've asked ChatGPT to roast them or those kind of things. But if you can think of creative ways, and you can even ask ChatGPT and Google Gemini to give you a list of creative and fun ways that you can use AI to just have some fun. I give it a try. It's really good. And the images that it created are getting so much better. When it first came out, there was an issue with images of hands where there would be multiple weird fingers poking out the wrong way, 3 arms, and those kind of things. And that's got so much better recently. It feels like there have been real leaps and bounds with the images that AI is able to create. Google recently released its Imagen 3, which is the new version of their capability of creating images. And if you haven't tried Google Gemini for creating images, I would definitely recommend doing that because it's really good. It creates some good stuff with the right amount of fingers, and it's definitely worth having a play around with it. I've just got Midjourney as well, which is an incredible tool for creating images and artwork. I've kind of just scratched the surface with it. So as I get to know more about that, I will share that with you as well. It's fantastic. I took some pictures last week. I wanted a new image of myself with my laptop and with the desk and everything. And so I just thought, I'm just going to take some pictures of myself. The image that I've used for a couple of years, my main profile picture, was one that I took myself early on, and it's fine. It's done the job. It's not perfect. I definitely, having some professional photography is something I will do at some point in the future. I took some pictures and they look really good, actually. I'm really pleased with them. But there was one that I wanted to use. I had a few different ones of it, but the one where I really liked how I was smiling and liked how it looked, I cut my arm off. So I thought, okay, let's see what Midjourney can do with that. And it did a really good job of putting my arm in. It expanded the office a bit more, so it looked like I had an amazing big office. It did a really good job of it. So I feel like that's one of the things on my to play with list is diving into Midjourney. But even if you're using things like Canva, I've used the Canva AI image generation as well. And that's been really helpful. So yeah, give it a try. Try that. I use sometimes when I'm doing the menu planning as well, I'll create images of the meals that we're going to be eating. They always look very AI generated, but even just having that extra thing in there so I can visualize what we're going to be eating, and it just all makes it just a bit more enriched, really, I think. And I do use AI generation for images in business as well. My podcast artwork is an AI generated image. It's like a graphic sort of thing. Again, we've just scratched the surface of that, but it is really, really helpful. I don't use it as much for personal life, but certainly for some things and just for having some fun with images. I've always enjoyed playing around with images, photo editing and that kind of stuff. Right? So I think there's a lot of ways that I'm using AI in my personal life. I would completely encourage you to use AI and learn as much about AI as you can. It's here to stay. It's the future. So I definitely think those who know how to use it, even you don't have to understand fully how it works. Like you don't have to understand how your car works, but knowing how to drive is definitely an advantage in life. But it's the same thing with AI. So you don't have to understand the back end completely. But if you can understand how to use it to your advantage, how to tweak your prompts to get the results that you want to, and those kind of things, all the tips and tricks that you can learn about that can make a massive, massive difference, not just in business, but in our personal lives as well. And just help us to make our lives easier. Even if that's nothing else that it does, it just allows us a little bit more mental space to be able to then have more time for leisure and enjoy life more and have less stress and overwhelm. Then I think there's definitely massive pros to using that. As I say, I will create a future episode on how I use AI in my business. I'm also going to do a future episode on how you can use AI to make websites and SEO better. The world of search is massively changing. So I think that even if I planned an episode for 3 weeks' time, there could be developments that have completely changed. So we can definitely use it to our advantage with those kind of areas. But so let me know if you'd like to hear those and any other ideas. If you've got other ideas of content that you'd like to hear me talk about on the podcast, let me know. If you're in the Facebook group, you can let me know in the comments. If you're listening to the podcast, you can text the show. You'll find the link in the show notes to text the show and let me know your thoughts on if you're enjoying the podcast, what other episodes you'd like to hear, what other topics you'd like to hear me talk about. And I hope this has encouraged you to think about how you can use AI in your own life as well. This weekend, I am swimming tomorrow. The water was still in double digits last week. I suspect we should be nearly down into single digits. I think it's definitely getting colder. The weather's been really cold this week as well. I just walked the dog this morning. It was freezing, so cold out there. So actually, I love it. I love it where it's just so icy when you get in the water. The buzz that I get for the whole week afterwards is amazing. I really, really love it. So I hope you have a lovely weekend and I will see you soon. Bye.